I think, look, one of the most eye-opening when I first came into proximity to Sing was when I turned to him and I asked him, like, when I hit my first All-Star in RSP, and I turned to him and it was like a very, like, sobering moment. And I turned to him and I said, hey, what can I do to prepare? And he's not going to be on tonight, so I'm going to try to channel him a little bit for everybody. It was one of the more profound moments in front of me. It goes, it's not actually about who the best player is. Honestly, a lot of the time, the difference between the guy who moves on and doesn't is the guy who can handle lag or the glitches the best.
Oh my gosh, wow. Agreed 1,000%. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. And Neff had a meeting this week about All-Stars, and we didn't talk about that, and that is so important. Okay, continue. That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up.
It was like the Karate Kid. Miyagi realized it was like he wax on moment. I was like, my God, it was so profound, and it's the most nicest soft spoken guy to have that moment. It's like, Miyagi, teach me. It was great, and it's so true because my very first All-Stars, I was 10 minutes all jacked up. I had a whole week of prep. You're like all amped up for it. And 6 minutes in, I got frozen. Tried to start, got locked out of the and logged back in 4 minutes later, 0. So, couldn't call for rain, couldn't move, couldn't do a thing. Couldn't heal, couldn't do a thing. And I'm like, that was totally not my fault. Thank you, Evony. And it was like so infuriating. I'm ready to like hunt down their headquarters. Like I'm like all of a sudden thinking, I'm like, I could probably like hack. I know enough people like in this game that are nuclear engineers now that I could probably hack like a nuclear code somewhere, And it was sobering. I was like, that was so prophetic to hear from Sing to say, yeah, it's however you can handle glitch. So I know not to start now. I know not to like, and one of the most important things I tell my team now is screen record. So that if they absolutely rape you like that, especially if you're a coiner and a VIP player, tell them I'm quitting unless you give me my egg. So many people, because they had the recording of the glitch, got a dragon egg. Now, I want to be very clear to the people who are listening. They're not going to give it to you at first. You first write CS, say you guys completely dick me, spent $1,000 on freaking speeds and All-Stars package, and your glitch cost me the whole goddamn game. And the first thing they're going to try to do is buy you off with like 10 days of speed ups and like probably like a bowl of soup.
And say sorry, my liege.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they call you my liege, right? And then you literally have to keep at them. Like, no, it's not enough. F you. I want to talk to your manager. I want to talk to their manager. I want to talk to the goddamn CEO. I'm going to hire a freaking lawyer, and then I'm going to come to your house, kidnap your dog, and it was just like
Allegedly.
Allegedly, and like a month and a half later, they're like, all right, you're dragging it. Shut up. and that's what ends up happening a lot of the time is you have to keep at them. People are like, they only gave me like 100 days of speed ups. I'm like, that's the first round. You have to keep going up and elevating and saying, this is not enough. You're not going to buy me off. It's garbage.
Yeah, you can't quit. You can't quit.
I think going back to what you mentioned earlier about all of the lag and what Singh said about that is I think that is something that's super important, not only just for you, but also as a team. Because I have seen countless times where we've been in the middle of a match and there's just that one person who's been complaining about lag the whole time. It ends up throwing off like your entire teamwork together because now people are getting upset because they just have to listen to this person complain about the lag, complain about whatever. And so I think that even for just like your team morale in general, I think that's definitely something you just got to like figure out how to deal with. Say, okay, maybe you join one less rally so you can make sure you get your marches back in time. Maybe you be more careful about which rallies you're joining. You might want to port farther out, something like that, so that you can combat the lag while still trying to keep your team in the game. Because at the end of the day, if you get first place, most of your team is advancing. If you get fourth, most of you are not.
Yeah.
And
that's
with so 100%.
With that, I think, and this is a good tip for you guys. You can be the voice of reason and calm and say, and I've said this to Neff when we had a horrendous lag during Shalans, and we were like, totally gonna beat. It was, I don't know what round, but we were gonna beat that team, and we had the most like horrendous lag, and it didn't seem like they did. In fact, I don't think they did. But
I think it was GOT.
Yeah.
In the semifinals, I believe. Like
it's
3
just
or 4
another
All-Star
like
games, you know?
another NAF All-Star or Shalon's horror story. But anyway, so
We can speak for weeks about those.
we could. So what I said was, you have to focus on what is not wrong, and there's things we can do, and that changed the tone of the entire call, and we ended up at the very least having fun. But there's different types of lag, and you have to learn how to adapt to the different types of lag, and you cannot let your team go down the rabbit hole of panic. So it doesn't matter if you're the setter, if you're the setter or not, you can bring your team back and say, like, keep focusing, keep refreshing, do what we can, try to reinforce, like, whatever. There's people that have secondary marches that are not stuck. Let's use those. Let's use, focus on smaller targets. Do like baby sieges on people, because we're only using people that actually have a secondary siege. Like, you have to, it's like wicked problem solving.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to move away from this point, because I've gotten to the point where every time first thing I do, and I was late this week because I had COVID. I was down bad first few days of this week. I usually on Wednesday. Now? Yeah, my first day. I'm on like 85 almost. But the first thing I usually do is set a meeting, a voice with our team, to make sure everybody can get on voice, everybody can recognize each other's voice. Do a voice like on Wednesday night or Tuesday or Thursday. Because I had COVID, we're doing it Friday for my team. But try to have that voice and try to call out, okay, is anybody's first All-Star? If anybody says yeah, I always tell them now, okay, listen, there's gonna be lag. Expect there to be lag. Evony loves lag. It makes them money. If they could fix it, I'm sure they don't want to fix it. Expect it, okay? Do not panic. Do not freak out. You should communicate to the team that you can't rally. Like, listen, I'm the rally runner. My game's glitched. I'm screwed. Give me 3 minutes. Somebody take over. You should have a backup rally runner. As a matter of fact, I think most teams are now running 2 rally runners or a basic game plan for like All-Stars and Salons and Battlefield. I mean, I'll post right now into that a copy of my Battlefield checklist. Literally copy and paste. Like what I tell every player. Like, for instance, this is copy right into the chat. I don't know if it fits. Let's see. Like my pre-war checklist that every player, I tell them, you logged in 10 minutes before the game. Make sure you run through these one by one. Make sure your March settings are ready. Make sure you activate your dragon skills. It's all there right now. There's certain things that you want every Battlefield or well-oiled Battlefield team does, right? Like the rally runners have their different color chat bubble than anybody else. Everybody else has to turn off the that notification. Your Monarch talent point tree. A lot of people have a war setting, a peace setting. A lot of people forget to do that. A lot of people forget to change from monstering to PvP blazons setting. I mean, there's different settings that a lot of people forget because, it's just, they're just too much adrenaline. This is actually a takeaway from surgery, because surgery is fascinating, because surgery is very much checklist. The checklist safety, checklist for, things like taking off in an airplane, things like operating. There are checklists. Okay, did you count all the sponges? Are you leaving something inside the person's belly? I've never done that. It's kind of a joke, okay?
It has been done before, just not by you.
Let's put it this way. I've had to go in and fix it. People did it, but I'm going to say, I've never been that person.
You need to put sponge on the checklist.
Yeah, right? Like, there's checklists. And using those checklists prevent you from making a dumb mistake or being absent-minded. The these are the things that like it becomes a routine, and expecting the glitch changes and prevents that panic you're talking about. You're 100% right. I've heard people out. Back to what you were saying earlier, by the way, it's like I call my dragon egg an out. It's interesting that they did up the ante now with for instance, castles for the winning team are different for the ones for the second and third and fourth place. Like that All-Stars castle that gives you the defensive buffs. That one was a huge difference. The Elder Dragon Trolls now is going to be huge for the top 50. That's massive. And what was really fascinating, it's interesting because I felt like the people who always, quote-unquote, won All-Stars, there was a little window where it was the people who were most gifted, but I felt like the last few was definitely people who coined a ton of speed up and just healed again. 2 All-Stars ago, I was on and I remember the rally setter freaking out. He was so pissed because one of our players, once we had the win secured, kept full healing and dropping other hives just to jack up his score, and he ended up coming in first. But for that reason, nobody wants him on the team now. That kind of behavior, that's the one thing about Evony in the community I love. When you do shit like that, it's going to catch up to you. People are going to attach that thing to your name and not want anything to do with you whenever it comes to All-Star. And they're going to be like, oh, great, we got that a-hole on it. He's going to leave us out to dry as soon as he can.
I think that's one of the important things is to always remember is that, like, while it is a team game, it's also a solo game because at the end of the day, you want to advance, you want to get the best place, but sometimes what is best for your team is also what's best for you. And like you said, it could come back and bite you if, you know, you're doing something notably malicious, for example, towards your team, stuff like that.
Another one of like my battlefield strategy in All-Stars usually, and I alter it up. I usually look at my Sunday or Monday when I get and I see which group I'm in. I will create and devise a strategy knowing who I'm up against. Do you attend and learn who the rally runners are in your continent? Like they each get a personality, and you're like, oh. And by the way, I think that's one of the funnest parts of the game is that you can look at it and be like, I know that guy. I've been on his, and some guys will make you laugh. You're like, God, that's so violent. Like you ever had, you know who I'm talking about. Like, every continent has that guy, and he gets in the battlefield and he's like screaming and panicking, and you're like, this is hilarious. I don't even care about the game anymore. I'm just having fun laughing at this guy. And it's funny because like you can hear the guy, like you're playing against him, and like you'll zero somebody big on his team, and you're like, I'm just laughing right now because I know right now his entire voice channel is him screaming his head off right now, and I'm loving, and you're just laughing your ass off.
Yeah.
And it's funny, and then like whenever you're like, I hope to God, like people aren't going like, God, I hope I don't have him on my team. If I have an issue, is that I'm young for our continent. I mean, as the time goes on, like not as young. So
you mean like your alliance, like your server started
right now?
Okay.
Yeah, right, our server started late on the con, and like when 45 came out, it seemed like all those guys, like 100 or 200 ahead of me in the continents, all had stockpiles of resources, farming for a year longer, and went to K43 immediately, and I had to battle my way. I literally got to K40 like 3 months before K. It was like the most like move the end zone, move the goal line on you kind of moment. You're like, are you effing kidding me? Like I thought I was done for a little. I could build up power, and now you're chasing that again. Yeah, and right now I'm 43 back, and I'm going up against 44s and 45s. Like my team, I'm like, God, I wish I was a 44 or 45, and I'm not there yet. That's the frustration. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of what happened to us for C2. Is it was K35. People are pushing to 35. They're getting there, and then they drop right after we get merged in. Maybe not right after, but a little bit after we get merged into C1, they end up dropping K40. And I remember the day K40 came out, we were watching JT on server 12 sit there and farm literally every ult that he has and pretty much got as far as he could that day. And we're just like, that is so many resources that he just went through.
It's so like frustrating. Like, all right, I'll try to my way there, and you know that the people that are on the cusp and on the bubble have to coin to catch up. That's one of the things that's mind blowing about this game. Is people don't realize coining time. It's warp zoning, and it's catching you up. People who had a few year head start, and one of the equalizers being able to coin, and it's like, well, Evony wins. It's like, all right, that's not the players, but you feel this duty to your team. Like, I've got to give the best chance to win. I've got to have the four-hole. I've got to be able to withstand these 100 million rally. If I'm setting the rally, I want to get zeroed and not be able to set anymore. So it's just heart-wrenching whenever, you're a little behind on your continent. Like people are like, oh, great, that would be softer. It worked out for a little while because offensive. And as I had Reigns, that was always coming out way, way ahead. But when we hit 100 million size rallies, it's like, who can really stand up to it? I think I was watching somebody was that you guys who was in server war last week, topping out somebody who was 2 million or something like that? Was that you guys?
No, that was VIG.
Was that VIG?
VIG going after Neo, the huge guy?
Yeah. Yeah. There were like other continents.
Or Battlefields with 107 mil rallies. We see a lot of we're seeing a lot consistent I don't know. This is usually 94 mil rallies is pretty back and forth slinging, but dude, embassies can hold a fuck ton, so call for Reigns.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly it.
Get your embassies up.
Yeah.
Embassies are an essential, pause, stop lusting after K44 or 45, and then get your embassy up. It's
you're going to have to do it anyway.
Yeah. So you are. So,
Well, that's funny because you're doing the right way, and that makes perfect sense. We've been playing SVS 6. I had a K44 Uber coiner trying to teach me that the buffs outdid the T15. And I'm like, wait. T15 had a 3,000 attack buff. T14 had 3,600%. 35-8. I'm like, you mean to tell me that the tactic scrolls, the research speed ups, the gold was easier for you than the resources? I mean, how does that make any sense in this game? Plus -4 layers. And I didn't have any, I just couldn't believe it. But there's a school of thought out there that believes that's the better move, and I guess a lot of people are doing it out there, but not something that makes mathematical sense. But that's you're right. Doing the embassy, doing the war hall, doing all that stuff up the right way, rather than your keep, is just mind blowing.
Yeah, it's long game, and it can be really boring.
Well, you were absolutely right with the voice channel. One of the things in my modus operandi for All Stars is definitely the airways clear. Nobody should be on there freaking out. Nobody should be on there cussing. Nobody should be on there crying or whining about lag. You need to keep those airways clear because there's nothing more frustrating than a rally runner going, I want to set this rally, but this guy won't up.
Yeah.
And those few seconds are going to be enough for them to get Reigns. Those few seconds are going to be enough for them to port. Those few seconds are going to be for one of your guys to get laid up on. So seconds count. You got to kind of keep those airways clear.
Yeah.
One of the other points that we very, very clear that people should learn from Bach and Bog, but people are used to playing with the same team every week. So someone will say, "Oh my God, I've got a mount rally on me." You're playing with complete strangers this time. It can't be send me rain. It's got to be mount rally on. Get used to referring to yourself as a third person. Don't use the word me or I. Use Wick. Refer to yourself in the third person so everybody knows Wick. And when you call for rain, make sure you share your chords in the battle chat. Do not just say me and expect everybody to know where you are. Huge, right? People don't. It's so frustrating.
I mean,
range rally on me. Okay, I'm coming. Who are you?
It still happens. It still happens in C1. And they've been playing forever. Where Or they'll
And
like
every time the person gets flamed, by the way.
or they'll have like a different, or their name doesn't match their new like font. Like it's like a shit show. So like, and this is so interesting. If you guys like really pay attention to like your battlefields and like watch YouTubes, if you call for reigns with absolute conviction, people will follow your exact tone back. And so if you're like, rally on hunt, it's going to be siege, shared chords, people are going to be like, they're going to respond with the exact same energy. Oh, I'm going to get reigns in her because, it's not that big. It's like, whatever. But if you're like, fucking siege on huntress, shared chords, fill me up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Love it.
They will follow that energy and hurry just as much as your voice is hurrying. It is like, it's so fascinating. But if you just take some time and watch some YouTubes, listen to your battlefield, if you say it with conviction, they will reign you with conviction. So that's like,
also applies to Turkish prison. Fill me up.
Okay.
Anyway, so
one of the things that Hunt mentioned there that I just want to point out is sharing your chords in chat is a huge thing, because some people are going to be in the war halls or the war page. Some people are going to be in the chat to join the rallies. A lot of it's preference. I've heard people say like one or the other works better. For me, I changed devices from Android to iOS, and that made me swap from chat to battle reports because it worked better for me on iOS, but Warpage just wasn't as fast for me when I was joining on Android. So sharing the chords in chat means that you're more likely to get more reigns, which means you're more likely to save more troops and make it through that rally to be able to join more rallies. So I think sharing it in chat is a huge thing.
Yeah, and one of the things I would also say is a lot of times there's a lot of confusion when people swap back and forth from what the rally is versus what reigns they want. What you should be doing is always calling out what the rally is, because different troop types have different reigns set, right? Siege, you send ground or mount or siege, right? So, and different people might be in different scenarios where somebody might be holding a building or a portal and or be soloing somebody. You don't know what they have. So you can't, if you say, I want reign, right?
I'm not going to reign you. If you say that, I'm going to be like, fuck off, dude. Fuck off. I'm not. Yeah, exactly. I need reign. Okay, fuck you, dude. Like, you're wasting our time. Just burn. I think it's like a symphony. So like, I'm really into this micro movements in Battlefield. So like, it's like a symphony. I feel like if you say rally on huntress, shared chords, send siege, all like that, it's a little worry, but you're saying what to do as they're moving as well. So sometimes I think if you say siege first, people like fumble a little bit. At least I know I do. But if you can say like rally on hunt, send siege, chords up, something like that, like the siege a little bit later, they're going to hear siege as they get to their presets. So like you can time it. Like there's a really beautiful way to time it too. But practice it out loud in your car, like in the shower, like just get used to fucking saying it, because it's going to keep you alive. And my embassy is just giant. My embassy is full, like we're going to go crazy positive on that rally. So the more that get in, the more points you're going to get, the more points your team's going to get. So, just don't be afraid to call.
Are you guys playing a more defensive strategy now that reigns have been kind of revolutionized, or are you guys...
Neff is a defense team. Neff has always been a very defensive focused team. Like we were looking at our opponent's generals the other day, and it was all offense, and like ours was our generals were all defense. So yeah, we've always played defense.
I think our top 7 gens, 6 of them are wall gens. Yeah. Like in our rankings.
We're like super fanatics about defense. It's just how we're built. And defense is huge right now. Like I'm so pumped right now that the game defending works again. So this All-Stars, like I think maybe not in prelims as much as semis and finals, but I think reigns are going to be a pain in the ass. And you can't just send blindly. I think you're going to need a real good shot caller that's going to be like, don't send that, it's full of reigns. And I'm going to say something that I think people are going to fucking kill me. But I'm going to say it. Maybe not this All-Stars. I swear there will be an All-Stars where a setter will have to set fakes to catch people with no reins. And I know All-Stars is slinging and fun and everyone loves that. But, like, finals last All-Stars, all 4 teams were, like, within 5K points of each other. Like, you were 4th and then you were 1st within 3 minutes. Like, no one knew who was going to win until the last second. And I was like, if we could have set a few fakes to catch because people were raining in, like, the amount of rains going into every keep, there were shot callers on every team. Like, if we could have ran a few fakes, like, we could have, like, I think it could have shifted the score of my team. But anyway, that's just, like, nerding out in the future, maybe, of what we could see. But back to kind of prepping for All-Stars. So
that's been our only countermeasure, by the way, to raining the way it is now.
Right.
And the one thing I'm really upset. Well, not upset. I'll say I'm very regretting or dreading the day it comes is when people start jacking up their middle layers in rain armies. It's going to be even harder to cut through the. I'm just going to tell you right now. I know we had offline conversations about the layer size.
Yeah.
The rain layers are where the massive difference are. I'm just telling you because the layers that get thicker withstand a couple of hits from armies with 1,000 layers.
So
it becomes a big layering.
So let's talk about.
We jacked up all of our layers, changed range dramatically in our alliance. I mean, our alliance punching. I mean, it's more so because Sing 2 is an incredible asset to us. But our alliance punching way above our weight class.
It's because of all those rocks
kind of different.
you weren't here, weight class, last week.
Sure
Sing was talking, like, obsessively about, like, his math and his, like probability, like, analysis on, like, hitting the rocks, you know, that, like, one pack.
Yeah.
It was, like,
oh my God,
it was
so funny.
Adorable.
He's chasing that one guy. Yeah, he's chasing that one guy. I was the one who was telling him about it. It's funny because I feel like I did that when I was overseas because we still chatted, you know, the time difference was a little off. And I pointed it out to him, like, dude, if you want to really prepare, like, this is the one guy I've been trying to get for you. And, or push his account because you get those free tries for that.
Yeah.
And, as soon as he, like, got onto it, I think he became, like, addicted to trying to pick up that guy.
He just really likes breaking the rocks, I'm telling you.
It's like the puzzle game we were always promised.
He was like, if it's
finally got
it was a puzzle game after all. But he was, but we went up against this box. We were up against C1 all 4 weeks, and we went up against the team. My team is 243s.
Okay.
And like 640. That's how small we are. And we went up against C1 twice, bro. 244s and like 942s. And we crushed it. And it was doing things like you're talking about, fake rallies, catching their rain, catching the guy that they didn't rain, like a lot of our layering, a lot of our mathing, a lot of our like stuff that we're doing is different. And they couldn't cut through our rains because they were thicker layers. And funny, the guy was so resentful afterwards, and I felt bad after, because then it was All-Stars. So even though we had a big enough lead, I just went over and just started laying out tiles, like, here, like, get some points. I want to help you guys.
Oh, that's really nice of you.
The guy was so resentful. And he's like, we just got out-coined. Like, what
that's...
do you mean you got out? I'm like, you have 244s.
Yeah.
Like, max 44s. Your buffs were, like, 400 more than mine. I'm like, we did not coin you. I was like, I just kept my mouth shut, and I was like, all right, whatever. But that was like a proud moment for me to be able to say, like, the guy's gonna like blame that, and I'm like, no, like, I'm looking at his generals that he's using. I'm looking at what he was setting on us. He was just way off on some of those rallies, and we port swapped a little bit. We did a lot of we pulled like every trick out of the basket. Keep up with these guys because truly they were a great team.
Isn't that so? Isn't that the essence of, like, that's what I love about Battlefield is those strategies in Battlefield where you really have to outthink your opponent, and it's like I think what I'm seeing is a lot of teams don't know what to do about reigns. They're really just like, all right, they scout and then they're like, quad? They scout and they're like, siege cav, siege cav, siege cav. Like, and
right. When they just start quadding at you, it's like grasping at straws.
Yeah.
And then they had a 44 start trying to quad solo. 40.
Yeah.
And he can't get through them because of the rain.
This is where the strategy finally comes in, because I think the game was so coin-based when K45 dropped for a while, and I was so, just like, there's nothing we can do. And now there's so much we can do. And so we have, calls weekly where we're just talking about, like the most, like, micro battlefield strategy things, like, ever. It's pure nerd out strategy, and I love it. I have
a question for you guys. What are you doing, like you personally, for your keep? Have you made any changes, substantial changes
for All-Stars? Yeah.
For this Saturday. What did you do?
I'm farming for MA10 tomorrow, and then I have like a lot of scrolls to go towards that, and then.
Is there a rally cap in 10?
Yeah, but
this is not for All-Stars. I just care about for personal reasons.
Yeah, I know. We've been overfilling our rallies, but I just don't think it's a priority right now. I think...
Oh.
It will be, but honestly, like, where it counts, against teams where, it's really like, we don't know who's going to win or lose. They're not filling rallies and we're not at like 10 minutes in. We're all doing like at 70 at that point. So I don't need 100 mil Warhol right now, I don't think. But that's just me prioritizing. Like, anyway, so I'm doing MA10, and then I'm probably going to beef up some like T9 plus layers. And then I'm going to train an absolute fuck ton of T16s, because I have all of them open and I'm going to go ham on them. So that's my goal before
100
Saturday.
100 bill hunt?
Yeah, 100 bill each.
Of just straight T16s?
That's amazing.
God,
I dread, I loathe going up. It's one of the things that really is, you have to go. Even if you're trying to take a building with 16s, it's so humiliating. I don't know if you realize that the difference. So right now at K43, I'm max. Like, I have everything researched. My mounted attack rally buffs are 3650. But if I solo that same building, 3000, 3100. So you're talking about a 500 difference.
Yeah.
Between a rally versus solo. But when you're on defense, you're not in that rally buff. You're losing 500. So they're hitting you with that, and unlike a keep, you're not debuffing. So It is hard mine now.
Man,
even if
I agree.
Even if because of the game's built-in functionality. So that's where I would argue becomes even more important, because buildings, I believe, marching buffs are on. So marching, not attacking, and this is where that microscopic difference between an attack buff and a march buff comes into play, versus a reigning buff versus universal buff, right? And this is why whenever I did my video on generals, I was like, look, I've always felt that having one universal buff general in your pairings, which is, by the way, one of the way that naturally builds pairings for generals that do pair together, is so key on those buildings. And a lot of times I'm seeing when we go up against in Battlefield up against a team older, and you're going and hitting and taking the mine from them every single time, I'll go through after those battle, look at the pairings that each of these players are using, and I'm seeing Alisal Ludwig's, I'm seeing Polygenous Mordred's, and I'm like, that's literally like going in there with Bay bars. That's literally like going in the same bar. And having just one Martinez, even Martinez, doesn't have to be the badass guy who just came out, or Tortilla. There's Tortilla, right? Like
Tortilla chip. Yeah,
Tortilla, right? Mexican guy, right? I think. Anyway, so he's like, right? They banging new Covenant generals with crazy, even more over Ascension buffs. Having at least one in there I've noticed whenever it completely changes the dynamic of whether we splat or we take it from them. And it's funny, I feel like the game's catching up to that, starting to make these new universal generals that are even like Frigg is one of my favorites. That she's universal, and even as universal, her buffs are better than Elise. And it's mind-blowing that, like, okay, now we've got a universal general who's better than a qualified general from before. And a lot of people haven't really focused on getting those upgraded generals. That Evony's now starting to pour out a lot more universal buffs. And I feel like they're doing it because I feel like Evony has a master plan. I feel like there's a guy twisting his evil little mustache in the back room, sitting on a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck, and thinking, okay, let's create the need for the reinforcing general, and then now let's release them and make everybody chase like a cat with catnip. Like they create the problem, then they present the solution and add a nice fat price tag on top. And
every time.
So
it really honestly does. Sad. It's as sad as it makes you go, oh my God, here's a new universal mounted with Covenant out right now that I'm salivating over. Does it justify me dropping hundreds and hundreds of dollars on getting a fully jacked up? It's too late. Like, you're not, like, right this week, people are like, oh, which general? Like, dude, that's like walking into the final exam and like, okay, which class should I study?
yeah.
That's right now. Like, it's too late.
Well, what can we do now, like short term?
Unless you can bribe the professor.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly, right?
short term, we have
do
2
that.
days. How
Right.
do you want to prep for All Stars?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask Kid, do you have anything that you're doing into your keep before Saturday?
So, I don't think we've talked about this, but I do not currently have a keep anymore.
Oh, breaking.
I did when we started this, but currently I do not. I will be filling for somebody. Normally, if I'm not playing, I will be doing majors, but this time I'm playing somebody in Elite to try to get him a dragon from like top 50 or something like that. Doing what I can to help out the team. So.
Yeah. So HID's...
Well, if anybody quits in VHR, I'll leave them.
No, you're not taking HID. Historically...
I think Hunt would literally hunt you down if you tried to do that.
I'd be borrowing. Let's put it that way.
Okay, borrow's okay, but with rules. Okay, no, but HID historically is usually asked to set an All-Stars on someone's keep that's not around. But HID's taking like one for the team and helping a teammate who like could really use HID's speed skills. Like HID, as I said before, HID's like an amazing player in field. So he is helping, like he's playing Elite. I don't know if HID's ever played Elite, but HID could...
I have not,
easily,
no.
like we could probably... Okay, let me put it this way.
Screen record, I want to watch.
If we
this
swap...
is going to be fun.
If we swap keeps, HID and I, for All-Stars, like he would probably get my keep like, top 5. And I could play the other keep and probably get it through, of course, because it actually has crazy good buffs. So maybe we need to do that.
Account, but it's just our last matchup was extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, we got Frank a lot.
40th.
We got Frank a lot last round of All-Stars qualifiers. So we got 20 players in All-Stars, but we had one that wanted majors and got into Elite instead. But to be fair, his keep is like his power is very small.
Small for Neff, not small for Elite. It's the third biggest on our team.
Well, you're gonna have I think you're gonna have the time of your life.
This is gonna be like that scene from Billy Madison where the grown man is playing dodgeball with children. I want to watch. I want screen record. I want to watch. Fun.
So, one of the things
should be incredible to watch.
One of the things that I really want to do is this was probably 4 or 5 All-Stars ago. One of the guys who helped found like what Neff is today, Mags, he built a trap keep, and this was like K40 days, but like far enough along where he had like a decent trap keep. And in majors, he would literally just go around port swapping other teams' rallies that weren't even set on his team.
He's crazy. He's crazy.
Tanked.
Yeah.
That is what I would like to do.
Like, that's a port swap hero that, like, you're literally porting into, like, lion setting on bears and you're in stallion and you're port swapping into that. Like, I was like, how the fuck? It was this shitty little trap keep. He got it, like, all the way. Like, the rank was, I mean, he was like, what was his rank? It was so crazy.
We can ask Both to go check.
Like 6?
Like, I don't know if Clark's here, but like him, me, Hunt, Mags, all of us were just like, if you just rain, you just win. Like, it's a free advance. You don't have to take any rallies, and it was great.
And you don't have to heal. That's the beautiful part.
Yeah,
you rally, exactly. You lose that army. So when you're raining, taking the defense, flatting, if you want to talk about getting value for your troops, that same troop lives again fighting A. And again, the same troop's going to generate multiples of points compared to if you had rallied. That's the one reason why, that's the one X fact when you consider that heals point too, that you're harvesting the most points out of that same army. So why I generally try to tell people in the first round of All-Star, you want to be heavy raining. You don't want to blow through all your speeds if you want to move on deep to the playoffs. So I that's one of the little points I make on my calls for my teams, is to tell them just that.
And Saint HP made a really good point. He's saying, and it's really good to know going in, like, who on your team can tank that you want to rain. Like, I already know on my team, like, who I want to rain and who I know, like, we're going to tank and do really, really well. And I'm not going to lose my rain. And I'm going to get a lot of points. And you need to know who the squishies are, because don't rain the squishies. You're just going to lose your fucking march.
Well, one of those things that differentiates squishies versus tanks are the flat buffs. I'm telling you right now, one of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing, anybody's listening to this and wants to prepare for Saturday, and you think you're going to tank defenses with your 1.1 billion T1 mount, if you do not have flat HP mount, your wall gen, you're going to get housed. You're going to get absolute butt rip. And it's one of those things that I don't think people are focusing, is understanding that if you don't have a minimum 4, it really should be 6 flat HP mount, your T1 layer is useless. They're flies. They're not tanks. They're not going to be moving up. 6 flat mount HP, I think, will put you out to a T9 or T7 base level. So your T1s are actually T7. When you're not using, if you're using percentage, or even, it's so crazy. I had one player that asked me to help him out, and I look in and he had no idea that you could lock refining.
Lock refines, yeah.
He didn't know we could lock them. So I'm like, wait, why do you have 1 mount HP and then 1 ranged HP and 1, like, what's going on here? And he's like, wait, how do you get them all 4 mount? And I'm like, I was like, I almost wanted to start crying. Like, oh my God, what's happening?
And they didn't see the little lock. I've heard this a lot. This is not the first player I've heard.
Yeah,
I've been playing for years.
And sometimes,
like, what is going on right now?
I think, and this is off topic, but I mean, it might be good before you guys go into All-Stars. I mean, it depends on kind of like your team and how much trust you have established. But like our team, like we share our logs with everyone. Everyone knows our logs like on the team. So we have like 13 or HID go into every single keep, and just like there's so many things that like our people are still doing wrong, and Neff is like constantly like there's so much good information in Neff all the time.
It's so wild you say that, because that's been one of the game changers. My alliance was going into people's keeps and tapping, untap. Like, I had crazy coiners. I'm like, why are they not performing well? And I go in, and it was just these kind of things. And you go into the keep, and you unlock like 400% in buffs and 200% more in debuffs. And all of a sudden, we had one player who went from not a contender at all to just missed. He like was 403rd for All-Stars for majors. I feel so heartbreaking. We had 2 players actually in the 403 and 407. It was devastating. Our last week matchups really screwed us. But just that, like going in and maximizing the potential of a keep, it's huge. Can't do that for them. So I'll tell you, for my team, All-Stars, the one thing I do hammer home to everybody being defensive. And that's having a minimum T1 layers, the T1 meat layers ready. That if we're going to rain you, we need to know that your meat layers are going to hold. People understand the concept of healing your T1 layer after they wipe it out for the next hit. And making sure that you've backed them up with the flat map. And if you haven't done those 3 things, you really aren't rainable. Just like you're describing, squishy is the perfect way to put it. If you're going to be squishy, putting rains in there is just hemorrhaging point.
On that topic, somebody in chat asked about essentially just like, how do you identify who those keeps are who are squishy? Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of it comes down to repeatedly playing All-Stars with them. Because barring you like looking at everybody's troop compositions, their buffs, and taking an educated guess of whether, nobody's going to go through and do that. But like, for example, our good friend C-Bone in C1, he has a keep that is known that you do not hit him. You never hit C-Bone because you will go negative even without rains. Because that's just how his keep is built. And that it has literally been that way since All-Stars like 3.
He hates it.
He never gets rallies. He hates it. We have to listen to him complain all the time. Love you, C-Bone. But last All-Stars, he said, okay, I'm going to change my name to somebody that everybody knows is super squishy. He did that. I could not tell you how many rallies he got because people would rally him thinking he was somebody they knew was squishy.
I set a siege on him. And I was devastated because I was like, this is going to be so dope. And now I'm like, I'm memorizing C-Bone's Monarch ID. I'm memorizing his Monarch ID because like he will not fool me again this time. So I do think in C1, there's going to be name changes in C1. So like as like setters.
Now there's going to be everywhere after this. Everybody's going to be listening to this.
It's going to be like... It's going to be... I mean, I love this kind of stuff. It's another thing, like, you got to figure out how to work around. Like, it's just the name of the game. It's so fun. So I think it's, like... I'm delighted by it.
We've had that fun in Battlefield where, like, one of those, like, dirty sexual maneuvers. Like, I was Dirty Sanchez. While somebody else was Mike Hunt. Like, somebody else was Donkey Puncher. It was just funny, like, to change the names up. We had one All-Star all their name to the number. It's a number.
Yeah,
we had... You were hitting.
What was it? It was Mag's team one time did something pretty much that was just like that.
Oh.
But it was like they all changed it to like just one person's name but slightly different.
Yeah, Huntress. Yeah. It was like Huntress hit me. It was Huntress. Yeah, they all changed their name. My own teammates, like, and they all decided to rally me first and try to zero me. My own teammates on the opposing team. Hey, listen, C-Bone's, the name he changed to, they're in the audience, and he's like, yeah, he changed to my name. But Lythan is working on, like, he's, like, super open to, like, how do I fix my key.
Sorry, Lythan.
So you could probably try to hit him this All-Stars, and you won't. I mean, I think he's pretty tanky now, but that's funny.
That's awesome. That, I'm dreading we're going to see it in to something odd.
Yeah, well, I think that maybe C4 is getting to that point as well, where like you know the names, but like I don't think that's going to work in C6. I think that there's just not enough experience of, oh hey, this person's squishy, this person's not, which that just comes with time, you know.
Yeah.
So what I would do, so here's what I would do. If you're like on a team and you don't know who's squishy and who isn't, so you're trying to identify who you're going to rain, you can ask, like, I don't like to micromanage the All-Star group I'm in, but like you could say like, hey, can we see your defense reports? If you don't feel like it's the right vibe to do that, you can ask around. You can try that.
It's like the 7 degrees away from like anybody.
Yeah. And like you can even like, again, watch some YouTubes of like people you know that like are in that continent making content and see if you can see any reports in there. Like, do some digging.
Why I never post Battlefield. I never post Battlefield videos. People are always like, "Hey, how come you never post vids of your Battlefield?" And it's because I use them to scout people I'm playing against. Yeah. And the last thing I want, is people looking at videos of my team and going, "Okay, we're up against the team this week," and knowing, hey, this person's squishy, this person's not. So that it's one of those reasons. Everybody asks for it, but I will never ever
study your opponents. Like, I've looked at every single opponent that I'm up against, and there's some where I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's another keep in C1 that has the most like filthy defense ever, and they don't have. Crow Merchant by chance? Crow Merchant. There's no content. Okay. There's so many amazing keeps in C1, and no one talks about them, and everyone says C1 is so squishy. But there's like some lethal keeps. So Crow Merchant, I was like looking at my opponent. I'm like, who's this name? Like, who is this? So I like went to the server. I like found the throne, or I found a sub, went to the sub, found the biggest alliance, looked him up. I'm like, this is Crow Merchant with a different name. And so I avoided him because you will lose no matter what you do.
Enemy scouting is always fun, but like I said, that's why I never want to give that up. It's interesting. It's funny, I was telling Singh, is one of his teammates. One of the things I love about this game, people you meet. Brilliant guy. One of Singh's teammate, I was telling him, I was like, dude, if you want points, you rain the guy. He's actually a really fascinating guy. He's like in his 50s. Literally the most brilliant guy, like kind of like Derek was, right? Like we were talking to Derek, like this guy's a nuclear physicist. Well, this guy's name is, first of all, this is one of the things you love about this game. The people who are generally a lot smarter and tend to be a lot more humble. This guy names himself Bartholomew.
Fucking word, man. Word. Say that again. Say that again. Say it again.
Bartholomew. I was like, Bartholomew, Barfucking-olomew. I'm like, it's a Spaceballs reference. I love this guy. And like, it was on my All-Stars team. I mean, we talked for like 2 hours. Guy's like mind-blowing genius. Like, his genius, like, I think if I remember correctly, was a super technical job, working for super big companies, sold a company, like very well-to-do. But when it came to the game, he was brilliant. And I remember we had fought him just 2 weeks earlier, and we could not, even this guy Unrain, crack his key. It was so brilliantly built.
Love that.
Sorry, Bar, for throwing you over right now for All-Stars.
Name change.
But
you have to change his name now.
Right. Name change.
Yeah. Change it to what's his name? Helmet? Lord Helmet. It's fun watching this guy, and he's got an incredible build. And it's funny, these guys are out there, and they're so low key, and I'm like, people really need to start, like the unknown, right? That it works to their advantage being unknown, because people will not know to not touch that key. But that's, I guess, one of the bad things about C1 and 2 is you guys have been playing against each other so long, the names start to come out and the name changes start to become necessary. So, again, another layer of strategy. Good stuff.
I think we should reference the quote of insecurity is loud and confidence is quiet. So I think on our team, the brain of the team is 13, and he didn't talk for the first 6 months in the alliance. And I was like, and he's building a cav gen? This was early on, guys, when there was still, most gens were mixed gear on them. There was no one being like, oh, this is my ground gen. It was mixed. And he was just building this one cav gen. And I was like, what? Is he the stupidest guy? But I don't know, sometimes he says one thing every month and it's really profound. And then he was
he's a philosopher.
Yeah, and then one day he's like, cav HP is extremely crucial against arch rallies. And we're like, okay. And he's like, we need to talk about cav HP. On your wall. And we did it, and no Neff keep, no one could arch a Neff keep because our cav HPs were so fucking big compared to everyone else's. So
13 was the first, which this is before I was in Neff. He was the first keep who I saw who had double 1,000 cav HP in defense. And I thought that was the craziest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because, like, no one was close. Like, 800s was like, oh, you're up there. Okay.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I believe those still waters run deep. And so that's just a sidebar. More on All-Stars. Like, what else do we want to cover? Oh, you know, there's something, and we went over this, but something really simple you can do to manage people giving their, like, hysteric play-by-play is, and this is setting the expectation so you don't have to do it in Battlefield. And just say this. This is all you have to say. Hey, guys, if anyone's giving their play-by-play, we're going to mute you. And you won't be able to become unmuted, and that means you can't call for range. So you'll be big fucked if you get rallied. So we don't need your play-by-play. That one line will mostly settle everyone down, and so they won't give their play-by-play. Because I would be scared. I'm like, geez, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get muted. And you know what? Like, this is a serious, like, this is a serious event for people. Like, it's fine to be, like, a little bit firm, you know? And people are, like, spending a lot of money on this and time, and it's important to them. So it's okay to say something that's a little bit, like, you know, firm. And that's how I manage the play-by-play in All-Stars, because you never know what you're going to get. Even in C1, 6 years in, they're, like, giving you their play-by-play. So
my team kicked somebody out of the call because of it last Battlefield. Because C1 still does line calls. So.
What?
That's one of those things that needs to happen.
I have opinions on that, but yeah. So literally, like, somebody was complaining about lag, and so all of our team was like, "Hey, we don't care. Stop talking." And so then she just completely flipped out, and so she just got kicked from the call, and that her All-Stars was over. Like, she may as well have just logged off at that point.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be careful with that, and I'll tell you why. My biggest problem, the times that I've done the worst in All-Stars, is when you have that player that's a port hog. Whenever you're settled, pick a spot on the map and be ready to say, okay, if I have to port out of the way, I'm going to port there. Stay there. Having one player on your team go rogue, burn 40 ports without any consideration of picking up a portal and replenishing.
Do you want?
Is going to.
This is so important. All-Stars lore from many moons ago. Okay.
The sad part is, I think I know what you're talking about.
This is a good story.
Like it was a while ago, but it really was not that.
Was it like
long
last
ago.
year? Okay. So, I watched it all go down, and the whole time I was like, don't piss that guy off. Don't piss that guy off. Like, wait until after All-Stars to, like, fucking troll him. So, first round, this huge player gets one tapped for 20 bill, which was massive at the time. That's like getting one tap for like 50 bill. Like, people were like, what the fuck? So he did make it through because all he did was heal like 85 times.
Which, by the way, so the reason it happened is because he didn't have subs. But this guy was like mega coiner status. Like, he was up there.
Yeah. So he makes it into semis, and the entire team trashes him leading up to the Battlefield. Like
changing their name.
Like, his team that he's on are like, you are fucking terrible. And I was like, don't do that. So what does this guy do when he gets into Battlefield? He burns ports the entire 2 hours. His team couldn't port out. They all get fucking zeroed the first 10 minutes. He ports the entire time. Every single port he uses. And I was on the opposing team. I'm like, well, I just felt like a mom. Like, I told you so. Wait till after All-Stars. Wow. But, like, that, like, karma in this game is, like, so real sometimes. But, like, so behave as much as you can, even if you're, like, there's people I do not want to play with in All-Stars. And I don't want to, like...
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but I will behave with them on the team. Another story happened. So in qualifiers, this team... Ghost didn't show up in qualifiers match against Respect. Were you on the team at this time, Wick? It was 808.
I think I was.
And they didn't, and they like basically wrote Sing and were like, "Fuck you!" Like you never did anything to this team.
I remember that.
They're just bitter. So you guys got big fucked, and then he was
I didn't make it because of that.
Yes. Oh my God, small world. So
I remember that.
So then everyone's like, if they're on our team, we're not gonna allow them on the call. And I was like, I want to do this for Sing. Like, I want to like fight for what these people did to him and respect, because I like adored respect. And I was like, but we can't. Like, we have to just let them in the call and just do our thing, because we're gonna fuck ourselves. And then, trash always lets itself out, right? So, that player is gone off that team. 808's a good team. Actually, MMZ's on my team. That it was just one, I think, really bad egg, but he sold, and now, I mean, it's a good team.
Isn't that funny how one bad egg completely changes the dynamic of even a server? This game is so sensitive to the one asshole who can change the tone of any team. I guess the psych part of this game, fascinating, is how toxicity can become so disruptive and destroy the team dynamic so fast.
Yeah, so, when you're strategizing, there's the team component too. So, like, play nice and go home after All-Stars and, talk shit with your team about who you played with. You know what I mean? Like, we have calls after All-Stars on our team, or, like, actually with a group of a few C1 players, and we just, like, let it all out in a safe space.
Yeah, I think it's literally we've been doing these calls in a C1 chat since like All-Stars 4, and it's like a pretty small chat, but it's just like that's where everybody gets their gripes out about whatever happened, Is there
anything else you guys want to discuss or kind of throw out as like last minute advice for people for getting ready for Saturday or not?
Another thing you can do is also research setters and make sure like that you do have the most capable setter for All-Stars like in the driver's seat, because a lot of players can feel a little insecure about moving forward, so they'll be like, I have a maxed K44 Warhol, like I can set, and you're like, well, like I think it's okay to ask for like kind of like their credentials on that, because that's huge,
their resume.
Yeah, so that's another,
like, do they know what to send at what? Are they keeping up with the change?
You can have like you can usually players are aware, and you can like nominate the setter if it becomes like an argument. So, like, for example, like, Arena is been in NEF for a little while, but she's never seen an All-Stars in C1. So I told her who the setters are on her team. And so she went into, like, the group knowing, like, okay, we have Rocky, who's an amazing setter and been setting forever, and Daddy, who's a great setter, too. Like, those are your setters. And so she went in knowing that. So, yeah, that's another thing. Because, like, there's setters that don't perform well in All-Stars, so yeah,
like that Clark guy.
Clark is an amazing setter for All-Stars.
Earlier when you mentioned winners of C1 All-Stars, you forgot to mention Clark.
I'm so sorry, Clark. I was probably feeding my dragon at home at that point.
Give one advice, first timer in particular, because that's the people like I feel the most for, because the jitters, the adrenaline. It's funny because I was talking to my R5. We had a player who kind of got screwed out of All-Stars because somebody else came in and bumped him out of one of the matches and messed with the roster. And he's one of our like middle higher players. He's good skill. He just quite as much an incredible player. We were trying to express to him like how important, how rare it is to get those Galaxy points, because. And it's funny, he turned to me, he's like, how much do those would cost? And I'm like, they're priceless. You can't buy them. Like, you have to be good. Like, I know players who are VFA 24 who don't have one dragon because they can't get in. They're just not good enough. And
yeah, there's those. That's crazy.
Right? It's scary. And I was like, think about it. If they sold them for $1,000 a piece, they'd sell like virgin food in Tijuana. They'd be gone in Like it sells so fast. These people would coin them to get those dragons. You can't do that. You have to win them. And now with the elder dragon, even worse. So it's important that you do well and important that you get there. It's one of those things where for when it's new, those nerves and that adrenaline can make you freak out. I'm going to share with my one piece of advice for the first timer. In surgery, the most important concept is they say by the time you've driven from your home to the hospital to an emergency operation, right? Somebody comes in, they've got a hole in there, and I find out X, Y, Z about it. When I'm driving to the hospital, I've done the operation in my mind sometimes. Like you visualize it. You visualize in your head, okay, I'm going to get into the incision. I'm going to make the incision here. I'm going to cut through these layers. He's probably going to be a little heavier. I'm going to have to do a little more cutting. I might be doing a little bleeding. I'm going to have to fix that. And you literally run through the head, visualize it. That's a little water boy-ish, but if you're water boy, you know what I'm talking about, like visualize and execute. You're visualizing it in your head. I've done the steps. You want to visualize before you get there. Okay, here's my checklist. I'm going to go through it now, pretend I'm doing it, do a dry run. And then I'm going to land. I'm going to be looking for this. Make sure I'm quiet. I'm going to, like, you want to visualize in your head what it's like and go through those steps. Okay, I'm going to land here. Rally's going to be cutting out me. Green's going to turn red. I don't freak out. I call for reins. We're going to have a pre-rating strategy. We're not going to have a pre-rating strategy. We're going to have a porting strategy. Right? And there's different teams are going to have different strategies. Some people don't like the pre-rating because you can't keep swap. Right? And other teams want to have the pre-reins because that's what we're doing. So understanding that strategy and visualizing it, playing it through your head, so that the time that it comes, you've already done it already 6 times. And you've actually prepared yourself to not freak out. Okay, wait, I thought about this scenario. This can go wrong. I could be glitching right now. Okay, is my screen record on? Do I have, am I going to be able to go to CS when I'm late to come back to the game in 3 minutes and I'm zeroing? Do I have enough heals? Do I have gems? Do I have enough speed ups? Do I have enough my buffs? Do I have the yellow buffs so that they're as jacked as they can be? Are my presets good? Are my layers good? These are the checklists and the visualization I definitely recommend the first timers in particular who haven't done it before to prepare themselves so that when they get there, the chances of you panicking or freaking out or making a mistake are costly minimal.
Agreed.
And that's a big deal for getting rid of those jitters. The adrenaline, right? The adrenaline's big. If you're a coffee buff, you've got your big coffee beforehand.
And it can be psychological too. Like there was some All-Stars where I was like, I'm giving up. Like my score, it's not like I'm playing like shit. And you get in your head and you don't have your teammates to like help you out and out of it. So you're sort of alone and isolated. But I mean, just take a second, look at the score. Like, it's worth a dragon. I think it's worth a dragon to, like, push hard as fuck. So, if you're going after a dragon, like, I don't like to give up in those scenarios. So, there's a lot of head games that will happen, too. So, like Wick said, visualizing.
Big time. And that's the one thing I will say is that, after you've done it once, the next time, even the second round, you're like, oh, okay, I know what to expect. It becomes a little easier. That first time is just, there's so much, like, you're so nervous because you're like, it's going to be 6 months before you can try again. You know, it's going to be 6 months before you hear again. Keeping it rare, I think, does get it make it very, put the pressure up for a lot of people. And this is like where you have to learn to work well under pressure. I think that is, in a nutshell, what's going to bring it back around, what Singh was saying. If you can keep a level head when people are freaking out around you. Like, for instance, one of the All-Stars, I remember there was a glitch where reinforcements weren't going in. They were not settling. And reinforcements weren't landing, and people on the team were starting to freak out. Wait a minute, my reins they're not there. You just went solo on that. And people might be freaking out, spend time, wait, everybody send reins. It made me realize the other team were sitting. So now all of a sudden it was like hungry hippos. So you're like, okay, we got to hit everybody now. Like, forget about reins, get out of the way. We're going to be setting rallies bad. And I told the backup rallier, we're both rallying simultaneously. And that worked out. And it was Singh's advice right there in true fashion.
Dude,
that came through. I was like,
Sing,
we have to be able to that level head.
Sing is his problem solving skills on the fly are fucking insanely I've seen it. We were winning against him, and then he just was like, the portals were an issue. He just like went to every single portal himself. Like it was like incredible. Like I was like, this cannot be copy and pasted. This can't be copy and pasted. So like,
it's problem solving skills. Amen.
It's
Absolutely.
like so amazing. That's his. I think it's his biggest skill.
To be as modest as he is the part where you're
like, he's so aloof, right?
Good?
He's so aloof. He's sitting here every podcast. Help me. I'm like, this guy in 6 months is going to be dominating the game. Like it is.
The funny I'm kind of thinking we need to stop helping him.
Yeah, we should stop helping him. We should actually give him wrong advice.
Dude, I told him other player team. I was like, they know that Sing's on your team. You guys haven't tapped him up for any advice or anything yet. He's like, dude, I didn't know that was the real. We thought it was a guy who named himself in homage. I'm like, no, that's Sing. That's like, right? I'm like, it's funny because like it'd be like sitting there at like a pickup game of like softball and like seeing like Derek
exactly.
Nonchalant about like just walking in and be like, hey, what's up, guys? I'll take shortstop. You guys cool with that? And you're like, what? Like, and that's I don't think anybody knows he's on their team right now, and it's hilarious.
I mean,
and I'm like sitting there like, what? Like, you guys haven't like sat and like been like, what do we do? Like, help? Like, it just has me cracking up, and it's one of my favorite things ever about him is he's that nonchalant and like chill, and very like, he's humble.
He's very special, and he is very he's very unassuming. He came to fill for Neff once. I was like, who's this dude? You know, unimpressed by most, you know, at this point. And like, he was like, hey, is it cool if I just set a little bit? And we're like, sure. And he was on a setters, you know, he's filling for a setter, one of our setters. We've always had multiple. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do some siege. And then like, I was like, he took us on this journey. And I was like, this guy is so fucking good. And I just, so that's, I guess, our fangirling of Sing.
I think we're good, right?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I'm going to go do more training.
Yeah, good. Get those sponges out of those bodies. Oh, you mean troop training. Okay, that too. Okay, this was fun. Thanks for listening.
Oh, I also thought he meant work training.